7, I believe. So I see that we are live stream. So welcome members of council, staff, and visitors to our council meeting of Wednesday, August the 11th, virtual, and with the calling of meeting to order, I will start with our council commitment. So we are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending. And that we will move on to the approval of the agenda, and that the agenda of the regular council meeting of August 11th, 2021 be approved as presented. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor LaRose and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if anyone so has, they may declare, and if not at the moment, at the appropriate time. Number 6, proclamations, and we have one. International Overdose Awareness Day, August 31, 2021. Whereas the municipality of Penetanguishene does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose, and whereas we recognize the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost and to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths. And whereas we resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community, which claimed the lives of more than loved ones in 2020, together with countless more affected forever. And whereas we affirm that people affected by overdose, our sons, daughters, our mothers, and fathers, our brothers and sisters, and deserving of our love, compassion, and support. Now, therefore, Douglas LaRue, Mayor of Penetanguishene, do hereby proclaim August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day in Penetanguishene. And that moves us on to a public meeting, number 7A, increasing building permit fees, Midland Penetanguishene PL 2021. The recommended action is that staff be directed to report back with a response to comments received from the public meeting. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Sainema and Councillor Buddeboncoeur, all in favor. And that is carried. Deputations, presentations. A presentation from the Simcoe County Food Council. And
sorry to interrupt, Your Worship. I do believe that we need our director to go through the public process for the, allowing a presentation, I believe, and members to provide those comments.
Okay, so then it is a public meeting, and so we have to go through the process of a public meeting. So is Andrea with us there somewhere? Here we are.
She is.
Okay, Andrea, give us the lowdown, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and members of council. This is a public meeting under the Building Code Act. The town is considering changes to the current building code, building fees bylaw that would see some increases to the charges for building permit fees in the town. This matter was considered at a committee of a whole meeting earlier this year, and the fees were proposed to be increased 15% in certain areas. So, excuse me. So with that direction, notice of the public meeting was given on July 15th, and we've not received any comments about the proposed fees increase. I would also note that this is in harmony with what recently changed at the town of Midland. As you know that this is a shared agreement, so the town of building permit fees were increased and effective as of July 1st. So as I noted, we've not heard any comments formally from the public, but if there's anybody in the audience tonight. Additionally, our chief building official is on the line if there's any questions specifically of him. Thank you.
Okay, members of council, do we have any questions, concerns? And with that, I believe public meeting, so we reach out to the public if there's anyone with us from the public who has any questions or concerns regarding the increase in building permit fees. There being none, then I guess we can call the vote on this matter. And I did have a mover and a seconder with that. And so I call the vote that all in favor. Okay, and that is carried. We move on to 8 deputations and presentations, and we have one from the Simcoe County Food Council. And now our clerk did give me the names earlier today of who was going to be doing the presenting, but I mislaid them. So who is actually doing the presentation on behalf of the Simcoe County Food Council?
It looks like it's Michael Ryan. He's
okay.
Joined
We see Michael Ryan. Welcome, Michael, and it's your role.
Will the clerk share the presentation, or do you want me to share my screen?
You could share your screen.
Brian, sorry, Michael. Yes, if you could share it, we do have it as backup if you have any issues. But ideally,
no, just each council is different. So thanks everyone tonight for letting me have the opportunity to speak to you. We are the Simcoe County Food Council. We were founded last October because COVID is a wonderful time to start a new initiative and bring people together to start working on this important topic. It's always important to know where we come from. So in 2013, Simcoe County created the Simcoe County Food and Agricultural Charter. The PRTG and a number of interested parties were involved in the ministerial roundtables on provincial food security strategies. And then through that, there were some meetings hosted in Simcoe County. And in 2018, a request for proposal was put out, and ecoeconomics was retained by the county to put together the public's input into what became the Simcoe County Food Security Framework, which was, was endorsed by County Council in 2019. And it's a mouthful. So the Simcoe County Food Council is the organization that was founded and recommended in the framework to implement the 7 goals of the framework, which we will go through later. So the goal of the framework itself is to further awareness and coordination and development on approaches designed to enhance food security for all residents of Simcoe County. The Food Council is the body in which is going to implement the framework, and its goal is a constellation model. With the idea of the council at the top and working towards these 7 goals. We have working tables below that are the boots on the ground, bringing people together that are working in the same sphere or towards the same goals. And how do we create collaboration and prevent duplication? Lots of times there's people in South Simcoe, North Simcoe, East or West that are doing great and innovative things that help further the goals of the framework. But they don't know about each other. And often there's people that want to start an initiative, they want to take action. And if we can connect them to people that have been doing it for a decade, can we save some road bumps along the way, speed bumps along the way, so that we can replicate success and avoid some of the failures that have happened in the past or some roadblocks that have happened in the past. So we have dedicated working tables towards our 7 goals. And support the development of community capacity and sharing of current resources, which I've discussed. The vision is a sustainable and equitable, secure local food system in Simcoe County that recognizes food as a human right. It's an interconnected food system with sufficient, nutritious, culturally appropriate food that is financially and physically accessible to everyone through dignified means. And the people are actively working towards realizing a more food secure Simcoe County. So the 7 goals of the framework are quite diverse. We have ones that are going towards community food security and some that are going to household food security, and them together. And we'll go over the definition and the distinction between the two later. But the first is to raise awareness and understanding that household food insecurity in Simcoe County is a problem and something that municipalities have a role to play, the government has a role to play, that society has a role to play to help alleviate the problem and the cost of household food insecurity on society. Number 2 is to support income and housing solutions to reduce household food insecurity for households who are underserved or marginalized. Marginalized communities suffer from higher rates of household food insecurity. And also at the end of the day, household food insecurity is really about not having the financial means to purchase food. So costs like housing, transportation, and minimum wage jobs that aren't supporting those, depending on the cost of housing and food in your area, can cause you to be household food insecure without much fault of your own. Number 3 is to increase physical access to enough nutritious food to all. Number 4 is to improve community food literacy. Number 5 is to improve community food infrastructure and support the agri-food sector. And number 6 is to foster Simcoe County's food traditions and Indigenous food knowledge and culture. And number 7 is to support countywide collaborations towards a food secure Simcoe County. So the framework itself is a 50 or 70 page document that lays out different ways that were brainstormed while its development of how these 7 goals can come to fruition. And so our goal as a food council is to put people together and push towards working these 7 goals. So since we've started last October, we have 6 working tables off the ground and sit on the Simcoe County PRTG committee. Because we believe that that's the table where we have people working towards income solutions and raising awareness for household food insecurity, which are goal 1 and 2 of the framework. So rather than trying to replicate what these people are doing, we want to sit at that table and see how can the food council as a whole help support the work that they're doing, and vice versa, what can they do to help support the food council. At the beginning of COVID, the food banks of Simcoe County were brought together by the county. And we took that over as pushing. And so we meet once a month with about 20 food banks across Simcoe County. It's the longest running working table we have so far, and some of the most interesting discussions that we've had. There's lots of varying sizes of food banks across Simcoe County. And so they're bringing people together that are facing the challenges of not only COVID, but other challenges and opportunities that food banks have had. And there's lots of discussion at that table about challenges and opportunities that they have faced in the past. And often there's 5 or 6 people that have seen that problem before and pushed towards it. So we've had some really interesting outcomes out of that table. Number 2 is food literacy and food programs. So community gardens, community kitchens, the school boards, separate and public in Simcoe County, as well as the early on centers, and working with organizations that are doing food literacy. They're running food programs. Often when you're running food literacy programs, where is the infrastructure to run to do food literacy? It's usually in someone that's running a successful food program. Agriculture and local food systems table has been talking about not only household food insecurity, but also land preservation and how we support the agri-food system in Simcoe County. Equity, diversity, inclusion is a very important working table because people that are marginalized or minorities suffer extremely higher rates of household food insecurity. So it's important to bring those people to the table and make sure that we're always keeping in mind the people that we're trying to serve. Community Gardens of Simcoe County has been meeting every quarter. There's been lots of challenges around COVID, and that's shifted into governance and volunteer retention, that developing resources and an open book library that people can upload documents, standard procedures, or anything that they might need. And how do we collaborate and grow that part of community gardens in Simcoe County? And then the other one is when we're doing all this work, where are the actual food assets in Simcoe County? And municipality-wise, there's been lots of food assessments done across Simcoe County over the last 10 years, but often they get to become a PDF on someone or printed on someone's shelf. And how do we create a standard document so that when someone's looking to do a food program, when someone's looking to do anything related to food in Simcoe County, where can they go and find out where that infrastructure already exists? So we're not searching out and finding a grant for a community kitchen that's really 500 feet away from one that already exists. So when we talk about this, there's kind of the economic development mode of supporting the agri-food system, which is really talking about community food security and increasing food access. So community food security is a condition where residents have access to safe, culturally appropriate, nutritious, and adequate diet through a sustainable food system that maximizes community self-reliance and social justice. But household food insecurity, which is a real problem with public health and chronic disease prevention department there, it is the lack of financial means. So household food insecurity is suffered when a household lacks the financial resources to access food. And it can be influenced by the cost of living, job security, social assistance rates, and lots of other factors that might be present in your community. So nationally, 1 in 8 households are household food insecure. 1 in 6 children, which brings in the student nutrition programs we've been working with. It's a very big problem, and student nutrition programs are often sometimes the only support that household food insecure children receive on a regular basis. Couples with children suffer rates of around 12% household food insecurity, but single parent homes suffer double if they're male or triple higher rates of household food insecurity if it's a female-owned household. Also triple that rate if, or almost triple that rate when they identify as Indigenous or Black. Provincially, we see very similar statistics in what household food insecurity is. A household food insecure family compared to not, it costs the healthcare system about 121% for an adult on the burden on the healthcare system if they're household food insecure. So society as a whole and with public healthcare, it's something the public health is really interested in alleviating and working towards. And at Simcoe County, we see that we match the federal rates. 1 in 8 households in Simcoe County are struggling for household food insecurity. And so the health unit runs a program called No Money is Food for Senseless. If you're not aware of it, I suggest you go take a look at it, where they talk about household food insecurity and what it really looks like in Simcoe County. So what does this mean at the municipal level? So there's many ways through zoning, planning, that you can support and monitor community food assets, and you can leverage existing resources and networks. From the No Money for Food is Senseless campaign, we see that the health unit recommends that province or municipalities annually review the prevalence of household food insecurity and poverty in their area, invest in local infrastructure to help reduce poverty, like affordable housing, affordable transportation, and active transportation, and policy and programs to support employment, training, and opportunity. Our goal here tonight was to raise awareness that we are a new organization, that we're bringing people together, and really we're just trying to raise awareness about the problem of household food insecurity and what the Food Council is. Some of the recommendations that the council has is to endorse the Simcoe County Food Security Framework, acknowledge that household food insecurity is a priority, and recognize that municipalities have a role to play through planning and economic development, support existing food assets, and identifying a point person to collaborate with the Food Council on its future work within your municipality. These are some of the founding members of the Simcoe County Food Council and the organizations that they represent. It's certainly a small snapshot of the very much broader input that we have at the working tables with the many food banks and different organizations across Simcoe County that sit at the working tables. And respectful of time, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, Mr. Chair.
Oh, very well. Good, Michael. Thank you for a very interesting report and a great presentation. And so I will open it to members of council. If any members of council have any questions, through to Michael. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Michael, as chair of the Simcoe Muskoka Health Board, this is all very interesting, and I think it would be of interest to one of our board meetings. So I would encourage, and I see that you do have representation from the health unit. So I would encourage them to come forward and make this available to the members of the board members.
I appreciate that. And Christine Bushy, the head of the Chronic Disease Prevention Program, has been one of the, not only the founding members of the Food Council, but was on the guiding committee that created the terms of reference, and has been very involved. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the health unit's time has been reallocated, but yes. We very much miss her and her program at the table. Yeah.
Very good. Well, if things continue to get better, perhaps there will be time before the end of 2021 to have this presentation at one of our board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions to Michael? Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Michael, I just wanted to ask you, what, if any, involvement does Economic Development North Simcoe play in this organization? I know we have a very active group representing farmers and the agri-food business, headed by two of our board members. And perhaps you'd like to let us know if Economic Development North Simcoe is involved in this.
Currently, I'm sure they were involved in the pre-consultation before the Food Council was up and running. I'll definitely make a note to reach out to that organization going forward. That's one of the goals of being here tonight, was to show that we exist, but also hopefully make some connections with other organizations. At the county level, there to economic development, Becky Breeden and Ruth Sawyer have been involved through this conversation, but that's definitely an organization that we will reach out to in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. I just think a lot of the things that you're asking or suggesting our municipality can do to support can be and is being done by Economic Development North Simcoe. And our board members are Councillor Cindy Hastings from Tiny, working with Pierre Paul Maurice, a farmer in Tiny. And they've done had some great initiatives. So I encourage that continued partnership, or collaboration, I should call it. Thank you, Michael.
Paul Maurice is a familiar name.
Further questions through to Michael, anyone? Okay, there being none. Once again, Michael, thank you very much for your time and an excellent presentation. So we will move on to 9, which is the adoption of minutes not already confirmed. And we go to minutes of council July 14th, 2021, and special council July 14th, 2021. And that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rose and Councillor Buddenbacher. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the minutes? There being none, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, the recommended action is that the following consent agenda items haven't been given due consideration be received for information. And A is a memo to council, the correspondence received from Sandy Bay Road area residents. Perhaps we could have our Director of Transportation and Environment, Brian, and just to give us a little clip on this, if you don't mind, Brian.
Thank you, Your Worship. The memorandum in front of council tonight summarizes correspondence that I've received from residents of the Sandy Bay Road area in relation to a section of Sandy Bay Road between the two entrances of Gilwood Park Drive. The Public Works Department pulverized this section earlier this year as part of our resurfacing operations. The condition of the road was at a point where we were having difficulty maintaining it. It was quite rutted. There were sections that were failing. So in order to improve the driving surface, we had the section pulverized in preparation for resurfacing in 2022, which is when it's scheduled to be resurfaced. There's also base improvements, so sub-excavation of portions of the road that are yet to be done. And that's scheduled to be done this fall by the Roads Division as well in preparation for the resurfacing. I wanted to make council aware of the correspondence that I received for the benefit of those residents that sent that correspondence to me, and just wanting council to be aware of the correspondence, but also wanting to be aware of the schedule for the resurfacing, which is next year, and what we're doing in the meantime to maintain that section.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. And that actually was a consent agenda item to be received for information. That is good. We will move on to matters for consideration number 11. And 11A is a verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer, re the COVID-19 municipal impacts. So, Mr. Stiello.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council and members of the public. Council and the public will recall that the last update I gave a month ago did indicate that the province had fairly recently announced that we were moving to step 3 of the roadmap to reopen, and that was happening effective Friday, July 16th. So since that has happened, and since my last update, a couple of the material impacts that we've seen at the municipality are as follows. So one, the museum. We did open our museum at 50% capacity on Wednesday, July 28th. It's open Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 4:30, and there is a half-an-hour closure starting at 12:30 every day. At the town hall, as well as our administrative facilities, we have recently started accepting marriage ceremonies and officiant services again, and those are in accordance with provincial health guidelines. Keeping in line with town hall and our admin facilities, starting next week, our staff will be transitioning out of the Teams model at their preference for a 3-week period. So starting next week, essentially staff can start coming in outside of their normal team day, but beginning Tuesday, September 7th, we will have staff at full complement back at town hall as well as our admin facilities. We will also no longer have a lunch closure from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock starting on Tuesday, September 7th. I did talk a little bit about resuming to potentially in-person council meetings at my last verbal update. Council will note that there is a report on this evening's committee of the whole making some recommendations with respect to some potential transition come October. The last piece I will touch on is with respect to the mass vaccination site. And again, there is a memo on this evening's committee agenda. But ultimately, the mass vaccination clinics that the health unit has been running at various municipal facilities are coming to a close. Ours at Penetanguishene is now complete. They are relying more on the community care partners as well as pop-up clinics that they're going to host throughout several municipalities in Simcoe, Muskoka. And in Penetanguishene's case, we have one coming up on August 21st from 9 o'clock to 1:30 at the library, as well as they're going to host one at the splash pad, or near the splash pad, I should say, on August 24th, and September 3rd in the park across from the beer store. Once those dates are solidified in their entirety, we're going to push out some corporate communications so that the public is aware, and the health unit will support that communication. The last piece I'll just note is that our control group is keeping a keen eye on the pandemic, not only locally, but also outside of our region. The Delta variant continues to be a concern. Lots of discussion about a potential fourth wave. And certainly if, as we've said all along, if the need arises, we certainly won't hesitate to make amendments to ensure the continued safety of not only the community, but also our staff, which ultimately continues to be our #1 priority. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any of members of council.
Members of council, do you have any questions through to the CAO? There appears not to be, so thank you, Mr. CAO, for that report. And we will move on to item B, which is advisory committee appointments, and that council approves Mayor LaRue's appointment of Denise Steves to the Trails Committee, Doug Rawson to the Committee of Adjustment, and Robert Cummings to the Committee of Adjustment. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Clue and Councillor LaRose. All in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. Moving on to C, which is the Wharf Sidewalk Repairs Tender Award, and the recommended action is that the Town Dock Remediation and Shoreline Protection Tender be awarded to J. Hoover Limited in the amount of $236,038.97 plus HST for repairs on the north side of the launch only, as outlined in the staff report, and that the town's asset management reserve be used to fund an estimated budget shortfall of $85,442.05, inclusive of a 10% contingency of $21,458.09. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Vaudemont-Kerr, are there any concerns, questions? So then, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Your Worship. Just wanted to go back to that consent item where you had our director just give a bit of a description. We did not get a mover and a seconder, as well as a motion on that.
And with, on what, which one was that, Madam Clerk? C?
Number 10A, memo to council regarding the Sandy Bay Road area residents. It's the memo. Normally you would have moved it.
Okay, so under the consent agenda, item A.
That's right.
I didn't get a mover and a seconder.
Right, we did have the director speak to it, but we didn't have a mover or a seconder or a motion passed for that.
Okay, so mover and a seconder, Councillor Levy and Councillor LaRose, all in favor. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so we have dealt with the item C. That will bring us to item 12, which is presentation and consideration of report committee of the whole. So committee of the whole report, July 14/21, that the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report related to the recreation and community services section be approved. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Saint-Amand, all in favor? Thank you. That the recommendations contained within committee of the whole related to the planning and development services section be approved. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Levy, Councillor Vaudemont-Kerr, questions, concerns? None. All in favor? Thank you. That the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report related to transportation and environment services section be approved. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Clue and Councillor LaRose, all in favor? Thank you. and that the recommendations contained within committee of the whole report related to the finance and corporate services section be approved. Mover and the seconder, Councillor Saint-Amand and Councillor Vademoncoeur. Are there any questions or concerns? There being none, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 13, presentation and consideration of report of special committees. A special committee of the whole, July 28, 21, that the recommendations contained within the special committee of the whole report related to the recreation and community service section be approved, and that the mover and the seconder, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Vademoncoeur, all in favor. That carried, and that the recommendation contained within special committee of the whole report related to the planning and development services section be approved. Mover and the seconder, Councillor Levy and Councillor Vademoncoeur. Questions, concerns? There being none, all in favor? And that also is carried. Thank you. Moves us on to 14, which is motions of which notice has been previously given. There are none. Notices of motion, we have none. Consideration of bylaws, there are none. So now we go on to the question period from the media and the public. Question pertaining to the agenda. There is none. Announcements and inquiries. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to give a shout out to, I believe it's the Recreation Department, who was in charge of the flowers on our main street this year. They're still very beautiful, I feel. So just wanted to give a shout out because I know there have been in past years at this time of the year, they didn't look so good, but this year they've stayed very whole and bright, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Sherry and Andrea. And the other shout out I'd like to give out to is Councillor Saint-Amand for her diligent and hard work with trying to get our waterfront cleaned of the Phragmites. It's a big job, and Joe, we thank you very much for taking that on, and certainly want to thank the Severn Sound Environmental Association for helping out. And I understand that you are going to have one more session, so we look forward to finding out when that is. Thank you.
That's very good, Deputy Mayor. And yes, we do owe a debt of gratitude to our Councillor Saint-Amand for taking that on. And I think maybe Councillor Saint-Amand, you might want to say a few words.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. It's been very productive down at the waterfront park with the removal of the Phragmites. It has certainly been a team and a group effort. The SSEA, the Georgia Bay Métis Council has been helping out. Obviously, the staff with the town of Penetanguishene and all of the volunteers. We had a number of volunteers that actually came out for both sessions, and they're ready to come out again, which is wonderful. There is another session planned for August the 17th, which is this coming Tuesday. It's going to be at 9 o'clock, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Based on the information from the SSEA, they figure that we'll finish that one stand that we were working on in the park. And then at lunchtime, we will be moving with the with hopefully members from the Rotary Club of Penetanguishene onto Champlain Road. So any volunteers, come on down to the park. Happy to get you working. Long sleeves, long pants, and your rubber boots. So much.
Good. Thank you again, Councillor Saint-Amand. Further announcements or inquiries? Being none, that will bring us to our confirmation bylaw, and that the confirmation bylaw 2020 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk, a mover and a seconder. Councillor Levy and Councillor Rose, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to adjournment. So the council, regular council meeting of August 11th is now adjourned, and we will take a 5-minute break before we carry on with our meeting of Committee of the Whole. What's that, darling? Oh, yeah? The big storm is past? Good. We are still waiting for Councillor Saint-Amand. Okay, we are all back. So with that, we will get this committee of the whole meeting of Wednesday, August the 11th call to order. And I'll start with the approval of the agenda. So the committee of the whole agenda, August 11th, 2021, the recommended action is that the committee of the whole agenda for August 11th, 2021 be approved as presented. A mover and a seconder, Councillor LaRose and Deputy Mayor, all in favor. And that is carried. Anyone having a declaration of pecuniary interest may do so now or at the appropriate time. We'll move on to 4, which is the presentations and delegations for all sections. And we have Mr. Tony Huguenin, re 123 Robert Street East, item 8B. And with that, we have a presentation that will be this evening of 5 minutes, because we already were previously, other matters were discussed previously. So it's a 5-minute presentation by Mr. Huguenin. And so, Tony, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tony Huguenin. Tonight, I'd like to make a short delegation and speak to you about 2 matters regarding the 123 Robert Street East development that are changes since the April public meeting. The first matter deals with the town's position that cash in lieu of parkland is preferred. And as a result, the initially proposed green space, parkettes, at Robert, Dufferin, and Burke will remain privately owned by the developer. It needs to be emphasized that the town has an opportunity right now to acquire the land at no cost as a draft plan condition for future improvement of the intersection as permitted under the town of Penetanguishene's official plan. As time goes by, land prices go up. This is a chance to start working on towards an interest in public safety that the area residents have voiced their strong support for through their April petition. The other matter is the proposed revision to the development's stormwater management design that is contrary to the town of Penetanguishene's official plan, which prohibits the aggravation of existing flood problems. This is a significant matter where other area residents have expressed their serious concern through their July petition. The remaining item in my presentation is the following self-explaining video that I will now ask your technology coordinator to play to conclude my delegation. Thank you.
Just one moment while I pull it up. I do apologize. It's taking a while to load. Just one moment.
Okay, Sarah, if you would, thank you. And with that completes Mr. Hugenen's report for this evening. I can well appreciate the video, but I have to say that the storm of June 26, 21 was one for the books. And the video could have probably been taken anywhere in Penetanguishene, including down at Beck Boulevard, where I have a large ditch that was overflowed over the street. So, but I know that we do have issues with the drainage that's going to or would occur, and that the municipality certainly has to do infrastructure and upgrading and whatever else is necessary. So we realize that it's something that has to be addressed. And now we will move on to our second presentation of the evening, and that is Mr. Brian McPherson, 123 Robert Street East. And Mr. McPherson, you are there with, whether it be you or your planner, you have a total of 10 minutes. So, Mr. Fergus McPherson. Celeste, is Mr. McPherson with us this evening?
He is, Mr. Mayor.
I don't see him on screen.
I see him listed as Brian.
Okay, Brian, yes, I see Brian, but Brian's
Here I am.
there we are. Okay, Brian, so you have a 10-minute presentation total with your planner. So if you will.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brian McPherson, and I'm the owner of 123 Robert Street East. I would like to take just a few moments to introduce myself and to make some brief comments if I could. When I first purchased this property, my idea was to provide housing that is lacking not only in your community, but many much like it. When we hired our planning consultant, Celeste Phillips, to help us with this link, we had a lengthy conversation on what it should look like and the type of people we wanted to design it for. I explained to her that we'd like a combination of reasonably priced housing and rentals, including in our design. When the proposed plan was completed, we both feel these requirements were recognized. I don't know if you're aware, but today 39% of home buyers who are under the age of 40 have given up on the possibility of owning a home, and 71% of people believe they'll be priced out of the market over the next decade. Over the years, I've seen so many young families who just can't get started with home ownership without including their parents who have also extended retirement to help their kids financially. The rental part of this development came about over conversation with people who are at the point of retirement and would like to get the equity out of their houses, but because the option of downsizing for these pre-retirees is becoming increasingly more difficult, the rental units would give them the opportunity to do so without the cost, maintenance, upkeep, and owning of a home. The two types of townhouses proposed will be attainable for those starting out in the freehold townhouses, and for those who wish to downsize and retire in a rental unit where someone else can look after the snow removal and the lawn maintenance. Our property at 123 Robert fits this concept perfectly. There's also been no environmental concerns. The woodlot has been deemed insignificant. We have 3 road frontages, sewer, water, hydro, gas, phone, internet are all available, and its proximity to the shopping and schools, as well as being on the bus route, provides very little disruption. I know there's been some concerns about the density of the property. Properties similar to this in many different municipalities allow even greater density to occur. And based on the studies that have been provided, there's been no proof that traffic congestion will be recognized. In fact, the increase in traffic will be negligible, and the existing road network can accommodate this slight increase. The draft rezoning bylaw, you will see that the height is limited to 2 stories, something that I suggested to your planning director to alleviate the neighborhood concern about development being 3 stories. The engineer that I have retained for this project, Jonathan Reimer, has worked closely with your town engineer to ensure the stormwater is properly managed. As you know, the post-development flow must match the pre-development flow and I leave it to the hands of the professional engineers to ensure all regulations are met. It is my understanding that Mr. Murray is satisfied with the engineering submissions, so this project can move forward. I believe I've been very transparent in my approach. I took the time to walk the neighborhood with flyers and explain my intentions for this property, and I also provided my personal phone number and email for anyone who wanted to contact me. To date, I've only received one phone call, and this person did not send a letter of opposition or sign any of the enclosed petition. Excuse me. I did although get some positive feedback from a couple of the neighbors, as well as people interested in what was going on and how they could be in touch with us as this development proceeded. As I understand it, the Planning Act gives council the opportunity to schedule a second public meeting if there are changes to the proposed zoning, i.e. increase the number of types of units, changing what was present at the original meeting. In this case, the zoning has proposed stays the same number of units, the same mix of ownership and rental, except that I've offered to reduce the height of the townhouses to only 2 stories in response to the comments. So there's no need for a second public meeting. In closing, I'd like to say that a lot of times these meetings always bring out the negative side of these developments, but there's also a positive side of this as well. As a builder, we're not just building a series of units, selling them and moving on. We've also invested in the community, as well as providing a much needed type of housing that is lacking in the market today. I will continue to be a neighbor as I own, rent, manage the 11 rental townhouses. Thank you again, council, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. You have not taken up your allotted time, so I'm asking members of council if any members of council have any questions through to Mr. McPherson. There appears to be none. So with that, I thank you, Brian, for your presentation, and you will note that it will be dealt with a little later in the agenda.
Yes.
Moving on to 5, which is the council information package. Council information package dated July 23, 2021 and August the 11th, 2021. And the recommended action is that the council information package dated both July 23rd, 21 and August 11th, 21 have been given due consideration, be received for information. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor LaRose and Councillor Vadebonker. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the SIP? No. Oh, Councillor Vadebonker. You're on mute, Councillor Vadebonker.
Sorry about that. There's a letter dated July 1st from Lydia Law that pertains to a matter that we'll be dealing with later in the agenda. So perhaps it can be pulled and just be available for when we talk about that matter. Thank you.
That's good. Fine. So other than that, we are all in favor for the SIP? Yes, it's scary then. Moving on to Section A, Transportation and Environmental Services, and I will pass it on to Councillor Klug.
Thank you, Worship. Under our consent agenda tonight, we have one item that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. The item is Midland Penetanguishene Transit Ridership Quarterly Update for Q2 2021. Do we have a mover for the item? Councillor LaRose, a seconder, Councillor Levy. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Under matters for consideration, we have one item tonight. Harbor Point Subdivision Phase 3. This is the initial acceptance of street lighting. Report ENG 2021-08. The recommended action is that the initial acceptance of the following municipal services within Phase 3 of the Harbor Point subdivision be approved. Street lighting installed as part of Phase 3 of the Harbor Point development, including Beausoleil Street, Houston Street, and Thompson Road. Can we have a mover and a seconder to bring this to the floor? Councillor LaRose, Deputy Mayor Dubo. Are there any questions or concerns? I know our Director of Public Works is here tonight. I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. That the Transportation and Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We have 2 items. The 2022 budget request for roadwork at Robert Street East and Dufferin. The stormwater management best practices and engineering standards. Just as a reminder, as we've been hearing a lot about that this evening, we do have that on our referrals already. Are there any changes? Any additions? I don't see any. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the referrals? Councillor Rose and Councillor Sanema, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And finally, question period from media and public. Well, almost saw the Madam Clerk, but I think that is it. So I will turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Glue, and we will move on to section 7B, Recreation and Community Services, and I will pass it on to Councillor Dubo. I guess Councillor Cummings is on vacation, so Councillor Dubo, you will take it.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Councillor Cummings is absent, I will take it on this evening. Our first consent agenda item is memo to council of the 2021-22 ice season. Very pleased to see that memo, and I know that our Director of Recreation is with us, so I would ask Sherry if you would like to bring forward that information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We did have a preliminary meeting this evening, actually just prior to council with the user groups to just start some consultation on possible procedures in keeping with step 3. So the user groups have been informed that we're planning to get the ice in the week of September 6th, and they're quite excited, as are we, to have an ice season upcoming. So that's the update for now, but we'll all be working on our safety plans, and we'll be quite happy to get the doors open and the kids on the ice.
Very good. Thank you very much. Could I have a mover for this item? Oh, yes, Councillor Vadabonker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the update, Madam Director. Just a question with respect to the ice. So if I understand you correctly then, and correct me if I'm wrong, the ice will be in and ready to be used as of September 7th, the day after Labor Day. So between now and then, we'll be doing everything we need to do, get the plant fired up, get the ice in, and it'll be started to be used as of the 7th of September.
I can't confirm the exact date. It'll be sometime within that first week of September. The same week the kids go back to school. It'll be one day within that week that we'll start renting ice again. But yes, we are looking at, we've had the ice plant service call put in, and staff will be working to get the ice in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions, members of council? Seeing none, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for this item. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Sanema. All those in favor? Thank you. Our matters for consideration is the museum outbuilding roof repairs. It seems we have an issue on a couple of our outlying. The recommendation is that the emergency roof repairs to the museum outbuilding be funded through anticipated savings achieved in the RCS budget. Madam Director, could you speak to this issue?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The roofs there's various outbuildings of the museum. The roofs appeared to be in good shape. Unfortunately, when we looked to opening for the day camp season and preparing for the summer, there was some water coming in the building. So we know that some repairs needed to be done sooner rather than later to protect the contents and delay any further repairs. So we went forward. Actually, Paille Roofing was on site today to start some of those repairs. We do believe that we'll be able to cover the costs with some savings in either the operator or capital budget as a whole in order to the additional expense, unplanned expense.
Very good, thank you. Are there questions from members of council? Seeing none, I did read the motion. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? All those in favor, yes. Thank you. Move on to our referrals and upcoming agenda. That Recreation Community Services section endorsed the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We have one, and it is the outsourcing of day camp. I know we do have a day camp going this summer, but we wanted to leave that on to analyze at the end of the summer. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Vancourt, seconded by Councillor Sandoval. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. We have question period from the media and the public. Seeing none, Your Worship, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And that will bring us to 8, Section C, Services, Planning and Community Development. And I will pass it to Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We will start with my phone going dark. Okay, we're back. The consent agenda includes monthly Huronia Animal Control Report, Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Report for July, Business Recovery Task Force meeting number 13 and 14, memo to Council re complete application for zoning bylaw amendment file ZA 621 9597 Point Street, memo to Council re complete application and public meeting 9597 Point Street. Do I have a mover, or does anyone want any of these pulled? Seeing none, do I have a mover? Councillor Vancourt, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Matters for consideration. Site plan application SPA 2102 37 Champlain Road, Beacon Bay Marina. PL 2021-51, recommended action that site plan approval be granted for the property at 37 Champlain Road for the development of boat storage building in keeping with staff report PL 2021-51. And you have your staff reports following that. Do I have a mover? Councillor Vancourt, seconded by Deputy Mayor. And any discussion? Madam Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Levy. I noticed on the map, or the map that was part of our agenda, that Rob's Road and the entrance into this marina are lined up. Is that, does that mean that there will be a new entrance into the marina?
Director Betty, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry if there's background noise for the moment. There is no new planned entrances with this development at all. That's purely just a mapping coincidence.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Moving on. Results of the public meeting for a draft plan of subdivision application, Pen Sub 2021-01, and zoning amendment file number ZA3 2021 123 Robert Street East. Recommended action that this report be received for discussion and that the application for draft plan of subdivision file number Pen Sub 2021-01, respect for 123 Robert Street East, be approved in principle. And further, that the application for zoning bylaw amendment file number ZA3 2021 respecting 123 Robert Street East be approved in principle. And finally, that staff be directed to bring forward draft plan conditions of subdivision approval and a draft zoning bylaw amendment for consideration at a future committee of the whole. And you'll see we have all the staff reports and public comments and letters following this. And I would like to ask for a mover and a seconder to get this on the floor. Moved by. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Clue. Thank you very much. And questions and discussion on this, please? Councillor Vadaboncourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As somebody who commented extensively in the public meeting with respect to this development, I'm not going to repeat what I said at that time. I'm supportive of the development of this particular parcel of land. I commend the developer for being creative in terms of the approach. The difficulty I'm having with it, as I indicated at the public meeting, was with respect to the density or the number of units that front on the public roads, that is Burke Street and Robert Street East. I don't have an issue with the internal, the layout and the internal portion of the subdivision. My preference for the development of these lands would have been linked singles, similar to what we see on Payette near the intersection of Lorne Avenue, the new types of linked singles that are going in. I thought that would be a more appropriate form of development fronting on Burke and Robert Street East. So I will not be supporting the recommendations for that reason. I was contacted by some residents with respect to the stormwater management issues, not so much in the direct vicinity of the development, but further downstream, down on Sulky and Gateway, concerned about the drainage, particularly as it hits that low spot. As members of council are familiar, that's kind of the exit into the Payette, sorry, not the park. And that's where all the water from Bridle, Sulky, Dunlop, parts of Robert all dump into that area. I've been reading the engineers' reports, and certainly they're aware of the stormwater issues. They'll be designing to address those stormwater issues. I just would ask that our Director of Public Works pay particular attention to the reports that are done with respect to stormwater management if this development were to proceed, because I'm confident in the engineers and I understand how the engineering works, but I just want to make sure that the stormwater is managed appropriately as it makes its way down to the stormwater facility. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my comments at this time.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor LaRose, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Vadabancourt did cover most of what I was thinking, but I just want to reiterate that the stormwater management does look like it's a big problem. We know it all has to go down to the soccer pitch, and how it gets there is of big concern. So we do want to make sure that that takes place. I'm also a little disappointed that we didn't take maybe a little bit more time and try and fix up that corner at Burke, Dufferin, and Robert Street East. We all know that's not been a good corner. This would have been a good time to either block that off, make it a turnaround, put a park there, whatever. So I would have been a lot more receptive if that had happened. And my only other concern is some of the driveways that are exiting onto Robert Street East. It's a very busy road. It's more of a feeder road rather than a community road. So I'm a bit concerned with the entrances that are coming out there.
Thank you, Councillor LaRose. Does anyone else? Councillor Sanamont.
Thank you very much. I do have the same concerns as Councillor Vadabancourt and Councillor LaRose. I also, like through reading through the report, I was wondering who completed the traffic impact assessment and saying that's an insignificant increase in traffic in that particular area. I'm just curious as to what would be deemed significant when we're looking at the number of new properties in a very tight area. I'm not sure who would have that answer, but I do have concerns as to the number of units that are going to be going in. So at this moment, I would not be supporting it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sanamont. I would ask Director Betty or Brian Murray to whoever wants to answer that question on the traffic study or respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Councillor Sanamont. The engineer that did the traffic assessment associated with the project was the developer's engineer, WMI and Associates. That was included as part of the functional servicing review as part of the planning portion of the project. And through that study, they made a determination that based on the amount of units and trips generated from the site, and based on the overall existing traffic flow on Robert Street East, that they deemed to be a very small percentage increase in the overall traffic. So I hope that answers your question, but if there's any follow-up, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Director Murray. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps our director could just confirm the process going forward, just so we have full clarity on that.
Andrea?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Clue. So right now the application is obviously in front of council for discussion. I think with the applicant and his planning consultant on the line are listening to council's feedback. So within the staff report, there are options. Obviously, staff have put forward a recommendation to move ahead with the proposal as is, but an alternative could be deferring it back to staff with some direction to help see if there's a amendment that could be made that would could be done to improve the subdivision that would get support from council, or alternatively a complete refusal of the development applications if that was council's wish at this point in time. I would suggest that deferral back to staff and having the opportunity to have these comments from council at this point in time probably is best suited to defer it to staff and come back at a future date.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Just for clarity, you do have a mover and a seconder on this item, so that would, in order to have council make the decision to refer back to staff, take some of the comments and make amendments, we would have to have either the vote happen and be defeated, which is not ideal because that is a decision of council, if that's not the decision, or have the mover or seconder rescind their moving and seconding and come up with another option.
Deputy Mayor? You're on mute.
If I remember, I think I did get the motion forward. So I would rescind my thoughts to put it forward. I would agree with the deferral to staff.
Councillor Clue, did you second that?
I seconded it, and I imagine I would remove that as well, because I don't think there would be another seconder remover.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're now going to, I'm now going to, first of all, I'm going to listen to George Vadabancourt speak. Go ahead, George.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was glad to hear that suggestion put forward by our director and our mover and seconder take back their motions. As I indicated, I think this development has great potential. I just would like to see it, the design tweaked a bit. And if that could be done through conversation and discussion and brought back, that would be great, because I think there's lots of merit in what we have before us tonight. It's just there's certain aspects of it that I have some concerns about, and other members of council have expressed their views. And I think that with an open mind, hopefully these matters could be worked out and a revised plan could come forward. Thank you.
You're on mute, Debbie.
Thank you. I will support council's wish on this, but I do understand that the less density we approve, ultimately, the higher the price per unit will be. And I quite appreciate the goal of providing attainable housing, which is as important as affordable housing in some ways, for people like my one local son who works hard and has given up on home ownership. For myself, has given up on the thought of ever retiring. So this development, I really hope that whatever comes out in the end will still meet Mr. McPherson's goals and what I believe is necessary in our town. But I will go along with council, and I appreciate all the great input. Thank you. Having said that, getting off my soapbox, now I need a mover and a seconder for a new motion, I guess, somebody to make a motion that we refer this back to staff, and George Vadabancourt has moved that. And Deputy Mayor Dubo has seconded it. And Stacy, if you could get all clerky here.
Just a referral back to staff. So with the mover and seconder, that's sufficient, I believe, unless our director of planning needs more direction than that. I think we're sufficient with what we have, with Councillor Vadabancourt moving and Deputy Mayor Dubo seconding that motion. Director Betty, do you need anything further?
No, I don't believe we do need anything further. I think we've heard, and I've recorded comments from council to have that conversation with the developer, and they're obviously on the line. As long as there's nothing new or additional from what's been heard so far that we need to be discussing, otherwise we're good.
Thank you very much, Director Betty. You've heard us, and we'll look forward to seeing what comes back. Do you have any timeline on this?
No, but I would guess that it would be as soon as possible, as soon as we can coordinate something and bring it back.
Right answer. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, just one further item. We do have a member on the line, a member of the public, Brian Kinnear, on the line that does have a question regarding this item that I've advised that he can ask that in the questions from the media and public. I just wanted to give you, because it was in the chat, I just wanted to give you a heads up about that before you got to that section.
Okay. A little lost here, just a second. Okay, what?
we just finished item.
Okay, so that's at the end when I asked for comments, questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. You have no faith in me, I would have asked, and I saw Brian's note. Land use compatibility assessment, Harbor Point subdivision. File number Pen Sub 2020-01, 2021-33. Recommended action that this report be received for information purposes. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, I'll ask for a mover, which I should have done first. Mover on this, Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Clue, and you have a question, Councillor Vadabancourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was the piece, the correspondence that I pulled from the information agenda dated July 1st relates to this. And I believe the clerk circulated a letter that we received today from the same individual pertaining to this matter. And I guess it has to do with the a comment made about not being able to extract a certain amount of the material that the pit is licensed to extract. And there was some concern expressed in the two pieces of correspondence that very well may happen, and that would cause an economic impediment to the adjacent pit operation. So I just wanted to understand, and maybe our director can help us understand whether this is something of significance, or is it just with respect to maybe a misunderstanding of what is intended with respect to those comments about not extracting material from a certain section of the licensed pit. Thank you.
Director Betty, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Levy, through you to Councillor Vadabancourt, and I understand this may be a bit complicated and confusing, so I'll do my best to be as clear as I can with this. So ultimately, what the land use compatibility assessment is suggesting is that to be in complete compliance with noise for the adjacent pit operation, there are two situations, two scenarios. One is build a very large noise barrier. And the second one was to negotiate with or have Penetang Sand and Gravel see if they would modify their operations, which would result in leaving material in behind. So those were the recommendations coming out of the land use compatibility study. But I would suggest that overall, what we recommended with this is the noise issues that may occur will be or proposed to occur in the future are minimal and will occur over a minimal amount of time. So I believe in the report they talk about, a 20-day period in which there will be noise exceedances happening on the property, and once that period passes, there will be no more noise exceedances on the property, and it will be, the pit and the residential operation will be in total compliance. So what the recommendation of staff is ultimately a do nothing recommendation, because in our opinion that, the wall as a mitigation measure is not financially feasible, or, for the 20 days where the noise is going to be excessive, is it really necessary and warranted? And then the alternative recommendation is that complete, decision by Penetang Sand and Gravel and Harbor Point subdivision and the developer, if they wanted to negotiate anything about reconfiguring how they extract material and leaving material behind, and any of that kind of compensation because of that, that was not the role the municipality was going to become involved with dealing with this matter. So for those reasons, our recommendation continues to be the same, that we do nothing ultimately, and that in doing so, there are a number of protective measures that the town put in place initially with the subdivision, within the warning clauses and additionally in the restrictive covenants that the developer has placed within the subdivision as well. So I hope that's as clear as I can possibly be, but ultimately the compensation piece, in our opinion, is not part of the recommendation and not impacting our recommendation or this decision.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Councillor Sanamon.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question or statement. We did receive another letter today from the sand and gravel, Penetang Sand and Gravel solicitor, and he brought around a good point. What happens 5-10 years down the road, and there ends up being major complaints that or at least there could be, and people decide they want to try and come back at the town for compensation or issues with the sand and gravel not being able to utilize all of the provisions within their licensing.
I think our director has a very good answer for that. This was asked or discussed at section yesterday. Andrea?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so that ties back to what we've put in there in terms of warning clauses in the subdivision agreement and then further enhanced that the developer did through the restrictive covenants. So Penetang Sand and Gravel, they're operating in complete accordance with their license and any noise that emanates from their site. And if there is complaints about it, and remember they're suggesting that this is a short-term window where there could be noise complaints, we would point back to the subdivision agreement and the restrictive covenants to say, well, this was known to have occurring and that it is a very minor exceedance and for a short period of time.
Thank you, Andrea. But I think Councillor Sanamont was thinking long-term. And could you address that as per the restrictions on the property owners to not complain? Was that not the gist of our discussion?
So that is, sorry, Madam Chair, I believe what you're referring to is, how does the municipality, what role the municipality has in the restrictive covenants aspect and enforcing that. And that's not necessarily the municipality's role to enforce the restrictive covenants. It is actually developer related. And so for those reasons, we would not be coming back if someone were to complain, but otherwise we do have that avenue under the subdivision agreement that the warning clauses were there and this was known to be occurring.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Rose, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to be sure. So as this agreement goes forward, all the homeowners, to the best of our knowledge, have been informed that there is a gravel pit there. And on the gravel pit side, they are still allowed the full use of their aggregate license. Would that be correct?
Go ahead, Andrea.
Through you, Councillor Levy, to Councillor Rose. That's ultimately correct.
Thank you. Councillor Vadabancourt.
I think that where the confusion may be arising is that in the report, it talks about administrative modifications. And there are two things that are spoken in that paragraph. There is moving the crusher from one location to another location on the site. And it talks about how Penetang Sand and Gravel, I think, has agreed that it would be prepared to do that. That would be the mobile crusher would be moved to another location. But in that same paragraph, it talks about some material being unextractable. So in that paragraph, those two things are mentioned under administrative controls. And then in the conclusion in the report, it talks about, I'm just going to read it here. It says that, and this is, of the 3 recommendations offered in the report, implementing administrative controls are practical and logical. And it talks about to implement the recommendations, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't really go, it talks about the mobile crusher a little bit later. Staff can work with Penetang Sand and Gravel to provide notice when the mobile crusher is to be in operation. But it doesn't mention anything about the extraction and or the limit of the extraction. And I think that's where the concern is coming, because when you talk about administrative controls, you talk about 2 things, but in the conclusion, it only talks about the crusher piece. I think the director has clarified, and I think that perhaps some correspondence going back to just confirm what the director has said this evening, that the town is really not taking any position with respect to this, and the protections have been put in place, and that the town is not going to be proposing that an area be deemed unextractable, if that's a word. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vadamancourt. It's a good suggestion. Thank you. Now, where were we? I think we've heard from everyone we're going to hear from. We've had a mover and a seconder, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'll call for the vote now. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And I believe we're moving on to referrals. Yes, our list of referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. We have Burns Crescent bylaw concerns, Huronia Control Communications, Community Development Fund, and 1056 Fuller Avenue. Does anyone want to add or pull anything here? Seeing none, I will ask for a mover. Councillor Vadamancourt, seconded by Councillor Steinemont. All those in favor? And carried. And now we have question period from the media and public. And I would invite Mr. Kinnear to speak. Brian? You have a question?
Yes, I live at 16 Bylaw Road. You saw in the video the flooding that was occurring on the 26th of June. I would just like to clarify that flooding like that on my property occurs at least once a year, if not twice. I've been providing the town with documentation and pictures of this flooding for at least 5 years now. I cannot understand how anyone can think that adding more stormwater to an existing system that is already flooding my backyard is going to work. So my question is, what are the assurances that the changes that are going to have to be done between my house at 16 Bylaw Road and the storm pond at the park at Payette are going to get done before the subdivision goes in? Because I quite frankly don't want my backyard flooding anymore. And it's going to get worse if there's going to be more water coming down through that system. My flooding gets worse. And and one more point, by the way, while I was getting ready for this meeting, I had flooding in my backyard from the little downpour that we had just before this meeting started. I had flooding in my backyard. That's what it's like.
Thank you very much, Brian. I think that's well within the scope of what council has asked staff to look at and report back to us. And and I know we are looking for assurances this is a long running problem. I've gone up to visit many houses. I know people in the neighborhood have had to send their kids out with personal flotation devices.
Yep.
On their own property. And so, yeah, we acknowledge it's been a problem. It's been a long-standing problem. And I think we'll look for some improvements, changes, assurances, whatever. So I do appreciate you sticking with us tonight to get your comments and, on the record. So thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. CAO.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add that we did receive some correspondence from Mr. Kinnear to our Director of Public Works. We're in the process of trying to find a couple dates that are suitable and meet with Brian, Mr. Kinnear and his neighbors on some of the site-specific challenges that they're experiencing. So just for council's sake, we are in the background working on a site meeting through our Director of Public Works with the residents in that direct vicinity. And certainly Mr. Kinnear will be in touch.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. Okay, any other questions from the public? Seeing none, I will hand it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Levy. We will move on to 9, Section D, Finance and Corporate Services, and I will pass it on to Councillor Sankama.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So, Section D, Finance and Corporate Services, under our consent agenda, the recommended action that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. A memo to council regarding the gas tax, the federal gas tax program, the 2021 quarter 2 financial summary report FIN 2021-21, and the AMO conference 2021 and the ministry delegation. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor LaRose, seconder. Councillor Clue. All those in favor? Thank you very much. So moved. Under matters for consideration, item 1 is the department capital budgets, the expectations. CAO report 2021-12. Be it resolved that council receives the CAO report 2021-12 for information and discussion. If I could have a mover and a seconder so we could bring it to the floor. Councillor LaRose and Deputy Mayor Dubo, thank you. Would you like the CAO to report on it? Any questions? Yes. Councillor Vadbunker?
CAO's report.
CAO's report. Go ahead, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, we've this report really is a report to provide council and committee with some information leading up to the budget process. We as a senior leadership team felt that it was opportunistic to provide council with a bit of a picture so that there aren't any surprises when we present the first draft of our 2022 budget. Really the report articulates and paints a bit of a picture over the last ultimately 4 years, if you look at what we're forecasting for the current budget year, which is 2021, and paints a bit of a picture in terms of the number of capital projects that weren't started, number of capital projects that were carried over, etc. And there's really a whole host of reasons, as I articulate in the report, why capital projects weren't either completed or maybe didn't get started. And certainly, a good number of these challenges existed before the pandemic. But as we all know, the pandemic has created its own set of challenges, from a product perspective, a contractor availability perspective, And even in our core business, throughout, more so throughout 2020 than say 2021. But so really the nuts and bolts of the report, we try to articulate that we are going to be putting some attention to the 2022 and forward capital plan, to ensure that we really are setting proper expectations for council as well as ourselves as staff, and ultimately for the community, and kind of ensuring that we're being realistic, but also recognizing, our capital plan continues to grow and balloon year after year. We will look at some creative solutions in terms of how we might address some of these challenges that we're facing. And I do articulate kind of a couple different options that we may explore, but ultimately what we anticipate, unless there's additional resources, be it physical or be it financial, we really do anticipate a reprioritization of our long-term capital plan as we look at 2022 and forward. And certainly, as we do every year, there'll be great opportunity for council to discuss and provide direction to staff around capital project priorities as we go through the budget exercise. So hopefully that provides a bit of a picture for committee on kind of the summary of the report, and I'd be happy to take any questions or comments from the committee.
Any questions from council? Councillor Vaudebancourt?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. CAO. I appreciate the explanation. I guess when we look at our capital program, there's a whole variety of different types of projects, from purchasing a pickup truck to a major intersection reconstruction to doing repairs at the town dock and the sidewalk. And each of them require certain purchasing actions, and some of them require a lot of background work. You have to do an EA, you have to do an engineering analysis, and sometimes these things take lots of time. I'm just wondering, from the capital program, when you talk about looking at projects, is it being considered that some of the projects coming forward will be broken out in that type of sequence? Say for a major capital, there'll be 1 year that the design will be done, the next year the EA will be done, and then the following year, that's when it actually will happen for those big projects. I appreciate the comments and I appreciate the report, but from council's perspective, obviously, we want to see these projects. Some of these projects have been waiting for a while, and there's a certain community demand for them. So trying to find that balance between, delivering on the capital projects and being realistic in terms of what the requests are. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you to Councillor Vaudebancourt. Certainly, I think the short answer is yes. Certainly, we will continue to explore that model as we do today. Certainly, with our larger capital projects, and I'll use Thompson Road West as an example. It's split out into phases. And we certainly try to do that with our larger capital projects. I would suggest that, if there's further opportunity to do that, where it may help staff from a resources perspective and capacity perspective, recognizing that there is still only so much capacity in a given year, that would be a model that we would look to expand upon and grow with additional capital projects as we kind of currently have in place today. So the short answer is, certainly we will continue to explore and leverage that format or model as we do today, Councillor Vaudebancourt. So hopefully that kind of provides some clarity.
Councillor Vandermoncourt, does that satisfy you? Go ahead.
Yeah, it does, and I appreciate that. But I was going to ask about the third party in terms of the use of external resources, i.e. engineers to do design and whatnot, and project management. We already do that for some of our projects. Case in point would be the Robert Street East and Fuller Avenue intersection. We employed engineering consultant. Is that one of the things that's under consideration? Is that perhaps to do the engineering we're planning on using more third party so that can be incorporated into the cost and then move some of these projects along, both in the engineering design, construction supervision, et cetera, et cetera.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I might, just to Councillor Vandermoncourt, the short answer is yes, that is one of the things that I've identified in the report. When I talk about creative solutions, I talk about spreading projects over future years, outsourcing some work to third parties, and/or looking to hire additional resources, which could include contract and seasonal staff. So the short answer is yes, that is certainly one of the options, creative solutions, whatever you may call it, that staff will continue to explore and maybe expand upon from what we currently do today with our capital program.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for all the information, Mr. CAO, and for the questions. Is there any further questions? Okay, if we could call for the vote, because that has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that has been passed. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the transition to in-person council and committee meetings, CL 2021-05. The recommended action that staff be directed to proceed with a hybrid model, in-person and electronic meetings for council and committee of the whole meetings starting on October the 13th, 2021. And that the staff be authorized to proceed with preparing council chambers to be compliant with public health guidelines to allow for in-person meetings. And finally, that should public health or provincial regulations change with either the reduction or increase of restrictions, that staff will be authorized to proceed with the necessary public health direction to facilitate council and committee of the whole meetings. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor LaRose, and seconded by Councillor Clue. Questions? Are you ready to vote on this? Everyone has read the report. It makes sense from a timing perspective. We would pass this at our next council meeting. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you very much. That is passed. Item number 3 is the procedural bylaw review, presentations and delegations. Report CL 2021-06. The recommended action that report CL 2021-06 be received for information, and that council approves the staff recommendation of option 1 as outlined within the staff report. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dubo, seconded by Councillor Clue. If again for option, sorry, give me 1 second. Let's open this up. Option number 1 is to continue to allow for presentations and delegations as needed with the approval of the mayor and chief administrative officer, allowing presentations and delegations to be included in an agenda based on timing of the subject matter. It allows for the public and the staff to provide timely information. So, Madam Clerk, if you would like to make any comments on the report, or if we have any.
I have nothing more to add, but happy to answer questions. I know it may not be the recommendation that was necessarily expected based on this being added as a referral item, but based on my review of both procedural bylaw and the history of our meetings over the last few years, it was something I felt strongly about as a recommendation. But again, there are always options, and happy to take direction as committee decides.
Any questions from council? Oh, Councillor Vadabancourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the clerk for bringing this report forward. It's certainly something that I had asked for, and I appreciate the analysis that was undertaken. I don't support the recommendation as proposed. I would support the 2 deputations per meeting, with the proviso that the CAO and mayor can grant exemptions to that. So it would be 2, and then if there was something that was really urgent, it would have to be the CAO and mayor to agree to add that to the agenda, the particular presentation. I think that provides good guidance for staff. You can maximize at 2 and say, sorry, that's council's procedure. However, if you feel, you could ask, and then that would, the CAO and mayor would be able to determine whether it's something that should be heard at that particular time or wait for another meeting. So that's my view, and thank you, Madam Clerk, again for bringing it forward.
Just a quick comment based on your statement, Councillor Vadabancourt. Like, the recommendation is not to limit it to the 2. It is on a needed. As a needed basis, and there is not showing any timing, so or any numbers. Go ahead.
Yes, and I said that off the top. I would not be supporting the recommendation. Okay. For that reason, I support option 2 with the proviso that the mayor and CAO be able to provide an exemption if required.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Levy, did you have anything to add? Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that I agree with Councillor Vadabancourt. 2 should be our accepted number, but if there is something that is timely and urgent, I think the CAO and the mayor can make that call.
Councillor LaRose, thank you very much. Councillor Levy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask if Councillor Vadabancourt is making that motion.
And before he can make that motion, we would have to call back the other one, because we did have a mover and a seconder to go ahead with the staff recommendation. So, Deputy Mayor Dubo, your feelings on that?
Yes, I will withdraw. I do feel I would support number 2 as well.
Okay, and Councillor Clue, you were the seconder, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't withdraw. I still support the recommendation, but if there isn't anyone to partner with me, then I see what will happen. So I'm keeping the motion on the floor. I believe that we're a nice town. If someone asked to make a deputation and we were already at 2, we would still allow it. I mean, we're back in the same boat. And I can clearly see under what's been quantified here, we're not adding any length to our meetings. We're actually doing quite well. So I'm not concerned about the number of deputations or presentations that are made.
Thank you very much. I actually agree with you, Councillor Clue. Madam Clerk, just need to, I need a little bit of guidance in this regard. Because the deputy mayor she has pulled back her moving, then I mean, I can't move it.
Well, Councillor, yeah, this is on yeah, sorry, that's no problem that this is a little more confusing than normal. I would assume that Councillor Clue would become the mover. She's requested to keep this on the floor, and she's looking for a seconder, and asking, I'm guessing, that the motion be voted on. If she can get a seconder, that would be the procedure.
Okay. So we'll call for a seconder then. So yes, Your Worship. Unmute. Unmute, please.
No, I'm just seconding to get it on the floor.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll have a call for the vote for option number 1. All those in favor? Okay, and I would have been 3. But that, and those opposed? Okay, so that motion's been defeated. So we will ask for a second motion then to limit the presentations to 2, but with the proviso that the mayor and CAO could approve if there's something that's really required in a timely manner. Does that suit? Thank you. A mover is Councillor Vadamancourt, a seconder, Councillor Levy. And all those in favor with the amended. Okay, so we have 4, and Your Worship.
Yeah, well, it's going to be 4-3. So
4-3. So that's been approved with the proviso. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Okay, financial implications. Actually, there wasn't. Wait, I went down too far. Hold on. My apologies. So, item number 4 is the sewage treatment plant. The sewage treatment plant grit removal system internal loan report finance 2021-22. The recommended action that a loan from the HEC reserve fund for the funding required for the sewage treatment plant grit removal system be approved in the amount of $400,000, and that the loan terms are set as follows. And I believe that is supposed to be 2.2%. Could I, Carrie?
That's correct. That's correct, Madam Chair, 2.2%.
Thank you very much. The loan terms are 2.2% per annum with a 15-year amortization, repayable in blended annual payments of principal and interest of $31,453 to begin July the 1st, 2021. And further, that the annual repayment be included in the 2022 to 2036 wastewater rate supported budget. And finally, that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Vadamancourt and Councillor Levy, thank you very much. And just to clarify, that 2.2, that's what the amount was, that the rate that was in the report was just a typo error on our agenda. So, any discussion? Oh, Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question through to Brian Murray. I'm just wondering, Brian, if you could give me a quick update of how we got back to this $400,000. I realized we had went to court and some of it was pulled back, and I just wondered if you could remind me of what happened.
Thank you, through Madam Chair to Councillor LaRose. The legal matter that was settled in accordance with the instructions as per council. The $400,000 is to cover costs associated with the legal matter and any ancillary legal costs associated with that, and it was all in accordance with the upset limit that council agreed upon.
Thank you very much. That being provided, thank you very much, Director Murray. If we could call for the vote, all those in favor? Thank you, that is passed. Okay, the referrals to the upcoming agenda. Referrals at the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. The Huronia Airport Commission Roadmap Update, Procedural Bylaw Review. Actually, that the procedural bylaw reviewed presentations and delegations can be removed because we did, or do we have to wait till council meeting? Madam Clerk. Sorry, if you can just clarify for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine either way. With there being actual changes to the procedural bylaw now, there'll be a bit of a systematic process that goes through that. So it's fine either way. It can be removed or it can remain. The ball is in motion.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it on there for now. And then the OPP policing costs, the CNCC recovery. So any additions or deletions? Okay, if I could have a mover and a seconder for the referrals, please. Councillor Levy, Councillor LaRose, all those in favor as they are. Thank you very much. That is carried. Question period from the media and public. Being none, I will move it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Sanama. And I guess that completes our committee of the whole council meeting this evening. I see that the storm has passed, so you can all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.